Thanks for attending our webinar today. Really excited to have everybody. We've got a great group of people here. Our topic, as you can see, is how and when to grow your shop into an MSO. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat down at the bottom of your screen, and we will get to those. We'll also have a Q&A at the end. Our moderators today are the people who will sort of be leading us through things. First, we've got Zack Romero. Zack has over 14 years experience in the automotive industry, really providing businesses, with solutions to grow their shop. He's currently the Senior Business Development Manager over at Broadly, which is a great partner of Shop-Ware and integration partner. Broadly is a customer communication and engagement platform, helping shops generate reviews, manage leads, facilitate communication between them and their customers. Really glad to have Zack here today, so thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And we've also, awesome. We've also got Cecil Bullard. Cecil, if you're not familiar with him, has spent the majority of his life in the automotive industry, whether it's a service advisor, manager. He's had a bunch of businesses as well. He's currently the CEO of the Institute and RLO training, as well as sales and management training for WTI. I'd known him, I guess, now over a decade. We've just sort of reconnected as I've come back over into the aftermarket space. But him and his organization and what he stands for is really just about helping shops carry forward and develop and grow, live the life that they would like to live, working on their business, not necessarily just in their business. He's published hundreds of articles. He's been a featured speaker, and really glad to have him here as well. Looking forward to attending the Mars convention next week as well. So excited about that. So thanks a lot for being here, Cecil. Again, I'm going to sort of take a step back, and I'll let Cecil and Zack introduce their board and who's joining them, and we'll get into some great content. So thanks everybody for being here.
Thank you, David.
For having us.
Zach, why don't you go ahead?
You got it. Thanks, David. Again, thank you for having us. We're happy to be here. And more importantly, we're happy to have some incredible guests like Phil, BJ, Cecil, and hopefully Brian can get on here shortly. But I'm going to go ahead and let's see, get my screen shared here. And bear with me. All right, can everybody see my screen okay?
Yep.
Look good.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So like David said, we're very lucky and very fortunate to have some relationships with Cecil, Brian, BJ, and Phil. And today our goal here is to help ask these guys a ton of questions, and two, more importantly, hopefully we can have them share some valuable lessons that they've learned as they've grown their business and are looking to grow their business. We're very, very fortunate to have them as partners and have those relationships with them. As David said, just a little bit about Broadly. We are a software that integrates with shop management systems, and we partner with Shop-Ware as well. We integrate with those systems to help shops do what they do best, which is service vehicles and service their customers. So in the background, Broadly helps facilitate communication from the web via web chat. Also helps shops communicate with their customers at their fingertips. So we provide an app that shop owners can utilize and contact, and really be in instant and constant contact with customers where they best see fit. And so there's lots of tools on the back end to be able to manage the communication, not only with customers, but also with team members as well. We have some other great features such as contactless payment and ways to generate a lot of different reviews, and making it easy for customers to leave reviews. And that's kind of what it's all about, is making sure that we help shops generate a lot of great and quality reviews so they can continue to attract new customers. So that's a little bit about what Broadly is all about. And obviously we're happy to tell you guys more about it at a later time, but more importantly, we want to talk about our guests, and we want to talk about why we're here. So, we're in the business on our side to help shops grow and to help shops and provide them the right marketing tools, and also help in any way we can to help them grow their business. And so this whole idea came about. We've been chatting with Cecil about how 2020 changed the way shops are doing business. And Cecil he could talk a little bit more about it, but he saw anywhere from 8 to 10% of his clients back in 2020 that owned multiple shops, and Cecil can fill you in more, but in 2021, he saw that number increase to 20. So we wanted to have a conversation around that, bring in the right people, and be able to learn from those folks, and more importantly, help you all learn some of those lessons. So with all that said, I'm going to introduce Cecil Bullard, the CEO for the Institute of Automotive Excellence. Cecil, it's all yours, and then we'll get going introducing the other guys and start asking some questions. So Cecil, it's all yours.
Great. With us today, we have Phil Carpenter. He's the Director of Operations for Urban Auto Care. I've known Phil for a while. Phil, 10 years, maybe longer.
Yeah, a little longer, yeah.
When I met Phil, they were working out of about a 4-bay shop, and I don't know, struggling, and now they have 5 shops. So it's been a great ride. We have BJ Lee, owner of Mission Auto Care, and actually a partner here at the Institute, and one of my best friends in the world. I've known him longer than anybody on here, maybe in combination. About almost probably going on 35, 40 years now. So
I think I'm looking at the screen. I think we're the old guys here.
No, it can't be. I can't be the oldest guy in the. You're the oldest guy in the room, by the way. He's like 6 months older than me, so I got to give him trouble about that. And if we can make it work, Brian Bates is going to come on. Brian has just bought 2 shops, and he's working on another one. So I need to qualify something. First of all, we purchased RLO training, and we kind of inherited a lot of guys that had a lot of shops, Brian Bates being one of the guys here. Hey, Brian, we finally got you on. Yay. Brian is the owner of Eagle Automotive. Brian you have 5 or 6 now?
We have 5, but we're under contract for a 6th store.
For number 6. And so when we welcome, Brian. We'll get to the questions here in a sec. When we bought RLO, they had quite a few guys that had multiple shops already. So we added to our multiple shops in that way. But we also have added probably another 5 or 6 guys. And right now, I'm having conversations with another 4 members of our groups about purchasing their either a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th shop. So there's a real opportunity right now for shops and shop owners that have their stuff in a pile. So I'm gonna start asking a few questions, I think, and get us going. And I'm gonna start with you, Brian, first. When do you think you were qualified to purchase that 2nd shop? What was it that said, I need to go out and purchase another shop?
Well, I think the biggest impetus for us was that we had a small store, 4 bays, and we'd really built to the capacity, the fullest potential that we felt was reasonable. We could have probably kept, really winding the clock spring a little bit tighter, but we felt like, if we do that, we're probably going to create a real stressful environment. That's not really what we were looking for as far as a shop. So, my idea was that you're either growing or you're dying, and really there's no maintaining the business. And there was a lot of guys in our store that wanted to grow as well, and I knew that I had to create that opportunity for them. So everything was running really well. I had a strong shop foreman in place that led the team. We had a team of 3 technicians, had a pretty good store manager with a service advisor, and that really allowed me the freedom to go out and look for more opportunities. And that was probably the biggest thing. That was back in 2012, and stores, landlords were begging people to occupy space back then. So it was, one of those deals where you could hardly get out of bed without tripping over somebody that wanted to offer you an opportunity in some sort of a building that was out there. The environment now is quite a bit different. You really do need to have all your ducks in a row. You need to make sure that you're financially secure and that you have a good team. The biggest threat back then was the economy. Right now, I think the biggest threat and opportunity in the same breath are the people, right? I mean, it's really focused on, can you develop a team that and create a team with a story and a purpose for your company that's going to inspire people to come join you and join your cause, knowing that they're going to build something bigger than themselves, be a part of something bigger than themselves, but also achieve what they feel like their goals and aspirations are as an individual and as a professional in this business. And do your two goals align with each other in the principles and the values that you have, personally and professionally? So that's kind of a lot of stuff there, but hopefully that answers your questions on really what I think are the basic fundamentals to open up a second store.
Boy, I think we could do a whole podcast just on creating the culture. Actually, we could probably do 6 or 8 on creating the culture in the business that's aligned with your company and aligned with the growth. And so thank you for that, Brian. I'd like to get deeper, but then I'm going to go off the edges and we don't want to do that. So
I know we've had these conversations before and they do get deep. So.
Multiple times.
They're fun though. Yeah.
Phil, for you guys, you have 5 stores now. I think the last time we talked to you, there had 3 or 4. Yeah. When do you think it's appropriate to grow, or why?
Yeah, I mean, definitely some similarities with Brian there. I mean, a big one for us was just kind of like what you said, is if you're not growing, you're dying type thing. Like you can certainly put a lot of focus and energy into maximizing each facility. Like, okay, the temptation is to I'm going to squeeze every last amount of production or sales or anything out of my one facility. And there's certainly some merit to that. Like, you do want to have your processes in order and all that kind of stuff. But there eventually becomes kind of a diminishing return. You eventually will plateau in whatever facility you have. So one was just opportunities for people within the organization, but then also thinking like, hey, we're not at capacity, but we are doing pretty well. And then we actually branched out, going from a German specialty store to a Asian and domestic store. So that was kind of our path for that second location. But it kind of happened. I mean, you were in the front row of that whole scenario, but we were actually looking to add a second German store. And then the opportunity arose for this general repair. So, but yeah, I think one major thing that I would recommend to people is making sure that you do have your processes in order and that you've documented them, because you have to prepare to scale. And if everything's in your head and it's not written down, it's not real, you're going to have to be really prepared to be able to train other people to do what you're doing. Train yourself to be replaced, basically. So
I think that in order for this to be successful, you really have to become a manager of managers and not the guy that runs the business, in a sense of, I answer the phones, I talk to customers. You really have to make a pretty major shift in your thinking about what you do in the company.
Hey, Phil, can you give a couple of examples of those processes you were talking about for some of those guys that are like, what do I do? What do we need to have dialed in? What do we need to have documented? Because maybe they don't have them documented. So what are some of those that you could share with the group?
I mean, you can get a little carried away with making SOPs, I think. I mean, do you need to have one for opening and closing? Yeah, probably. If you're training somebody new, and you leave your back door unlocked and somebody breaks in because you didn't have a checklist, that could be a big deal real quick. But anything from like, okay, this is how we handle a phone call from start to finish. This is for an appointment, or this is how our sales process works. This is how we check in a vehicle. This is how we check out someone. This is how our concept of dispatch. How are we scheduling people to wait or not. All these things that you think about, like if I'm gonna sit here and tell somebody how to do something, I need to make sure that I don't skip anything. And then later on, I'm getting on them because, hey, you didn't do that. Well, you never told me. Well, I thought I told you. No, you told the guy before me and he left. And you've done it so many times now you can't remember who you trained and who you did it.
Right.
So it's giving yourself that chance to sit there and have the time and brainstorm. How do I really do it? Does it make sense? And then make sure that you have those checks and balances in place, so that you can continue to replicate. Because like Cecil said, you can't be that guy as the owner or overseeing multiple stores. You can't be there for everything. So you have to make sure that you're replicating yourself, that you're not the person checking in the customer. So make sure that you have it well spelled out for somebody to refer back to. We all think like, oh, I want to show this person once or twice and they should get it. It's not always the case. So if you have that process dialed in, you have it documented, you can go over it with them once or twice, but then they have that point of reference to go back to. So they're not bugging you every single time, or you're not having to micromanage them.
I think too that it builds in your culture in a way, because when everyone knows how to do what they're supposed to do, and it's somewhat specific, then they're more comfortable. You have a more comfortable staff, and you also get the job done in a more efficient way. And then hopefully you're reviewing your processes and making adjustments as necessary to make them better and better. And if you have a good process for one organization, then when you add your second organization, you can usually draft those processes in. And again, now I'm getting the same performance consistently, and so are my clients, whether they go to site A, site B, or site C. We have a great processes class, by the way. I think one of the things when you start talking about processes is thinking about, where does it start? My marketing, then the customer calls, then ticket is written up, they get scheduled, and you go through the whole series of what happens with that client, and then what happens after they leave. And those are the important processes, like your inspection process. So, all right, I'll end it with that. BJ, you're looking for your second shop. Why are you doing that? Why are you adding the extra burden?
Well, I think one location operation is good, but for me to meet my retirement goals, I need more opportunity. So for me, 1 to 2 more shops will get me there, I believe. We have a real great, like you mentioned, culture. We have a great culture in our shop. And for me, culture is number one. I mean, we have to have great culture. If we got great culture, then the rest of it will kind of, work out, right? But we have a really good staff. Place is automated. I always have the saying that if the shop seems slow, but you're meeting your goals, that shop is running smoothly, right? It's like you go into that shop. I remember Larry's shop that you're up, people walk in and go, God, you guys are very busy. No, we're meeting our sales goals. We're, doing it's because everybody knows their job, just like Phil said with processes. Everybody just does their job. Everybody, you got a great culture. Everybody loves being there, and things just happen. And when things just happen and you meet those sales goals, you're like, well, hey, let's do this again, and let's do this again. So yeah, I'm on board with the culture, number one, having the processes in place. And I just believe that people are screaming. Our type of customers are screaming for our type of service. I just talk to people, when they come in the shop, just say hi. I've got a manager that handles them, but it's just like they just love you. It's like, man, what a great shop. Thanks for taking care of my vehicle, man. This is the first place I went that they didn't screw me, and they did a great job. So there's a lot of things that play into that, but I just think it's the right time. It just feels good.
I think customer service becomes super, super important, and really doing an exceptional job. Brian, I talk about finding the right customers in our marketing, the clients that will make us successful. When you multiply shops and you're going from say 2 to 5 or 3 to 5, are we still trying to find the right customers, or do we just want to take anybody into the shop? You're muted, Brian.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think that you really have to ask that question whether you've got multiple shops or not. And what I've found is that you really, or what we've dealt with as we're growing stores from kind of the ground up, or we're doing turnaround stores, which we've done both, that you the better you do and the higher quality customer that you attract, the more you can be selective about your customers. And sometimes you just deal with some of the BS that you get with the lower quality customers because you have to, right? But when you really start getting the reputation of being that top quality shop, then you really can talk to customers and say, hey, look, you know, this is how we work here. It's how we operate, and these are the sort of people that we're looking to serve. And if somebody doesn't fit that model, if they're difficult to work with, or they're really value driven or something of that nature, then you really have the opportunity to say, you know what, maybe you should, maybe this isn't the shop for you. And you can do that a bunch of different ways. You don't have to say it outright, but and then ask them to go somewhere else so that you can serve your customers that are really coming to you for the right reasons and that are a better fit for you and you're a better fit for them, and really devote your resources to them. And so when you're really moving to the multiple shops, then you start moving into kind of that scalable, more precise ability to attract those customers. And that can be through marketing. It can be through, you know, your locations. You can take a bunch of different ways, but hopefully by the time you're opening a second store, you've really identified that ideal customer. And I think that Phil's situation is really unique because they were looking for that German shop to duplicate, and then they had this opportunity to go into a domestic and Asian shop. And so that really kind of changed the way that they had to attract and look at what their customer base was and how to deal with, as most people in the automotive industry know, German high-end customers are much different than a normal all makes all model shop, and both uniquely profitable but have their unique scenarios. And so it's to me, I would have loved to have been in the front row on that as well, to just see how Phil and Brian kind of tackled that. And man, they did an amazing job at taking a shop that was already pretty profitable and well known and well respected, and just blowing the doors off of it, you know. And so I think, you know, Phil is probably very versed at answering that question as well.
I think Phil was very instrumental. I think there was an interesting with Phil and Brian, which is Brian, his the owner. There was an interesting conversation. I'm not sure I agree with the conclusion of that conversation, that the European customers were much more difficult to deal with on a larger scale. But maybe Phil, you could tell us a little bit about that. You know, do you still
Sure.
at the Urban Auto Care, are you still trying to find the right customer for that, or is it just take whatever you can get?
No, you still have to be selective. And I think it's everything. How you present yourself, what your brand looks like, what does your marketing look like, what's your website look like, how do you answer the phone? All of those things have to be congruent. Because if you're throwing out very discounted oil services, and then you're mad that you're getting people that are really worried about price, those are going to fight each other. So it's very, very important to make sure all that jives with each other. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that German customers are much more difficult. I think it's a little bit higher stakes. Everything's just more expensive for them, and for if we make a mistake and have to own up to it or something like that. It's just different. People still want communication. They still want you to meet expectations. They still need to get from point A to point B when they don't have their car. All of those things are very similar. I think there is probably a higher percentage of people in the general makes, that they have more options, I guess, is the bigger thing. It's not necessarily that they're more price driven. I think it's just that there's more options. Because if you have a customer that, if you're a specialty German shop, you're going to attract people that are looking for a specialty German shop. They have a BMW. I want a BMW master technician working on my car. I'm willing to drive 25 miles to come see you, versus somebody who, I just need my Toyota Tacoma looked at, and I got 5 shops within a mile that I can choose from. It's a car to them. So that's the biggest difference, but it was definitely a little bit of a learning curve, but we were blessed, as Brian said. It was a good reputation at that shop already, and we just continued to grow on that. So,
okay. I think that right now is an interesting time to be in the automotive service and repair business because of multiple things. First of all, we're starting to see consolidation. More shops are going to multi-shop organizations. And Brian, I'm sure that 6 is not your limit at this point. I think you might even be wanting to grow even further. I think that with COVID, the supply chain issues have become something that is interesting. And the conversations I've had with supply chain experts are telling me that it could be 3 to 5 years before the supply chain is repaired, is back to what it was pre-COVID times. We have a lack of technicians, which is a negative, but I think that the fact that the manufacturers can't get chips for their vehicles, it's hard to sell. We're going to see interest rates going up because inflation is happening. I think that there's a real opportunity right now to go and find shops. I'm going to start with BJ. BJ, when you're out looking for that shop, and I know you've made a couple of offers. What are you looking for? Are you looking to go ground up? Are you looking for somebody that's already there? And what's kind of the criteria that you're looking for?
Well, it's funny, the stuff that I've looked at, there's not a lot out there, and right, at least in my area right now. The stuff that's out there, it's either overpriced, based off my data. I get information from them. They say, here's what we're doing. They're not doing nowhere enough revenue. They're nowhere near enough profitable, but yet they're asking 3 or 4x on this number that isn't even a good number, right? I've asked for, P&Ls and tax returns and stuff, and nothing is even close to correct, you know? So how can you make an offer on a business that's valued at more than you can go to the bank for and say, hey, I need money, right? So I've been kind of redirecting towards possibly starting from the ground up on another location. So I'm kind of weighing numbers out. I've got some spreadsheets and, how long is it going to take me? What am I going to invest? Is it worth it? You look at some of this other stuff you go out and you buy, they want too much for it. You got to go in and turn it around. You're going to run off unless you get a really good place, which I don't have any of those in my area right now. That's at least in my basket. But if I've got to go in and buy a place and I've got to put another couple $100,000 in it, and then take 2 or 3 years to turn it around, is it really worth it? Right. So maybe I just go from the ground up. I'm not sure. So I'm still kind of in the middle of all that. I've made some offers. I've got one offer that was accepted, but I backed out of because I couldn't get, a good lease on the building and stuff. But, there's just so many things to take into consideration. And the way we track numbers and, you and I and everybody that we teach, it's got to make sense or you don't do it, but our goal is 3 shops in 3 years. COVID kind of set us back on that, but we're close to number 2. It's just, putting all the pieces
any
together.
day now, huh?
Yeah, any day. I mean, I
think Brian would commiserate with that in a way, because he had 2 shops on the hook and was looking at the third, not his third, but I mean, he had 2, I think it was 4 and 5, and looking at number 6, and he couldn't get the deal sealed on 4 and 5, and then all of a sudden it all happened at once.
Right.
So Brian, as you grow, what are you looking for? Are you looking for ground up? Are you looking for something that's already there? And if it's already there, what is it, right? What am I looking for?
Right. So I've learned many years ago to just kind of change my my laser focus on businesses that I'm looking at to more of a broad, open-minded. Hey, let's look at everything and just look at things on their own merit, and does it make sense? And so really what that looks like to us is something, you know, we have not done a ground up, but I'm open to ground ups. We've done a couple of empty building shops. We've done a few shops that were already in operation, and so there's a lot of that. But you know, we're also open to a build to suit. And so I think sometimes you hear people, they really limit their opportunities. It's not like going to a used car lot and saying, hey, look, there's 20 cars for sale here. What do I want? They're not plentiful. It's not like people are just hanging a sign outside of their shop saying it's for sale. So so really when we're looking at a shop that is already in operation, and that's really our first choice, we're looking for the potential of the shop, and we're looking at what the team dynamics are, and the location, all the technical stuff. But I think where you really separate the men from the boys are the team or the owners that can go in and say, hey, this shop is an underperforming shop. It's got the right people inside the building, and those people that are not in the building right now, we can attract those people and bring them in order to, you know, really bring the shop up to the fullest potential. So so that being said, you know, we took a shop that last year was making very little money. But we looked at it and we said, hey, the marketing, it's in a fantastic area of Denver. We talked to the people. We had access to the team months before we purchased it. And the team was there. They all wanted the same. They were lacking leadership, and they were lacking a couple of technicians. And so we bought that shop, and immediately shop has actually made about 3 times as much money as it made all last year in just a few months that we've owned it. And so that has been a success. And really, that store didn't really look attractive, but we could tell by just talking to people and knowing where it was at. It was just, you know, full of potential, just needed to be lit up. The store that we took over was a very high performing store. But we knew that it still had a lot of potential to grow. And I think for me, that's really key is, does it have potential to grow? Because if you buy something that is maxed out already, then you really miss out.
Yeah, we I guess we lost him on and we were struggling with his audio. So I think we have one of our clients recently, I don't know, a year ago, bought his second shop. And he bought an underperforming business is what it was. Average repair order was about 180. Great business, been around for about 35 years. Really great customers. And today his average repair order is like over $800. And the business is going to do over $1 million in business when it was doing like 300,000 the previous year. They've spent a lot of money on the building remodeling and cleaning it up, but you know, it was an instant win because it was an underperforming business, and so the opportunity was great. I've had several clients come to me and say, can we mute Brian just for a bit while he gets whatever's going on there? I've had a lot of clients come to me and say, you know, this business looks like it's worth this, but there's a lot of potential. Should I pay this, which is more than, and in many cases I've said, yeah, you know, I know when one of my guys bought his first shop, I was involved in that deal, and he overpaid for that shop by at least $100,000, but he, in his first year, made that money back. So, you know, there's a lot of different things that are involved in what is that opportunity there. And I think you have to take a lot of it into account. Now, with BJ's case, if I can't get a solid lease on the property, I'm not buying that business because if I have to move it, I don't know where I'm going to move it, and I don't know what's available. You know, it's too complicated at that point.
Yeah. Hey,
Um,
BJ, I have a question for you. Sorry, Cecil.
Go ahead.
Okay.
When you're evaluating the value of a shop that you have been looking at, BJ, or other ones you're looking at, I guess what are some for the group, right? For the guys that are on here, what are some of the things that you're evaluating, specifically when it comes down to financials? Are you comparing it against your shop? Are you comparing against where you want your shop to be? What are some of those factors and how you evaluate a shop?
One of the first things I look at is I'll start looking at reputation, find out what kind of reputation they have. I'll look at that kind of location, where they located. Are they in a decent area somewhere where, we can clean it up and put a good face on it. Secondly, I look at car count. I want to see what type of cars are coming through there, how many cars are coming through there. If they're underperforming, can I cut 30-40% of that car count and turn it around to the right type of customers, and what kind of revenue can I generate? And then you also look at the size of the building. How many bays is it? What is the potential that I can do in this shop over a period of time once I turn this place around? One particular location I was just looking at, it was a guy that's been around for 30, 40 years. The place is dirty, old, but it's a nice size location. It's a corner signalized location. Good reputation, but he's the good old guy, right? But he wants 3 times more for the business than it's worth. He's one of those guys for the years has done a lot of cash, put a lot of cash away, so he can't show you what he's really made in that business, right? So it's hard to go to the bank and say, hey, this guy wants this for the business when he's only doing this. So then there's a negotiation on, look, I'll give you some blue sky, but you have to carry that because I can't get that extra money from the bank, and I'll pay you a little more, right? But we have to negotiate that in the buying dialogue, purchasing dialogue with him. So, but it's all those little things, and a lot of it can all be overcome if it makes sense, right?
Yeah. Awesome.
But
we
that's
got
kind of some of the things I look for.
Awesome. That's perfect. We got a question from Parker Davis for the group. Age of staff is also a serious consideration. And this could go a lot of different ways. He's asking what age is too old? I'll throw that out to the group.
I have a shop that hired a 72-year-old technician.
Yes.
who can't, I mean, the guy can't put out 50 hours, but
Right.
now he's running the shop and managing the other technicians, and because he can fix anything. So I don't know. I mean, if I was looking today, I would probably want people in there probably not much more than 50, and I'd be looking for 30-year-olds. I like 30-year-olds. They've started their family usually. They have some needs, and they're going to be with me a long time if I take good care of them. Phil, do you have an age that you're looking for, or that you go, wow, that staff is way too old?
No, I mean, we've kind of gotten, through the last 3 acquisitions, it's kind of gotten a mixed bag of really trying to keep everybody, to having to basically replace everyone, to slowly replacing everyone with the last 3. The most recent one, we had a 67-year-old and a 60-year-old up front. The 60-year-old is with us. He's doing pretty well. To me, it's not really the age. It's how are they performing now? How open are they to changes? What are they like, either technically as a technician, or where's the value, right? Like as you said, we have some technicians that are like 55, a bunch of technicians 50 to 55. They're still doing great, but in 5 years, they're not going to be wanting to have all that work on their back. But there's a ton of knowledge there that we're trying to figure out, how can we create a position where they're still there and they're still helping, but not beating up their body as much anymore.
Is it like having that 15-year veteran quarterback on the staff that can help out the younger guys come up?
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's a ton of knowledge, and they're not ready to be done, but that's all they've known. So how can you have a mutually beneficial situation where you got somebody that's learning from them, or several people learning from them? They're not getting beat up as much, but they're still making a decent living, and not having to go learn something completely different.
I-
So there's certainly ideal situations, but to me, I'm looking at what is that shop doing now? How similar is it to what I want it to be? And then are these people willing to adapt? Because this gentleman that we have, he was there since '97, so he's been there quite a while. He's stoked, like he's happy this happened. Versus you might get somebody and they're like, nah, I mean, we switched from completely on paper to completely paperless to Shop-Ware in one day, and this guy had to learn it and he figured it out. But we had a gentleman at the other store, he was 65 and he gave it a very good effort, but he told us, he's like, you know what, like I appreciate you giving me the opportunity, but I don't want to learn all this stuff. It's too many things changing. I'm gonna part ways. Like, okay, more respect to you. So
I think that's also the value of multiple shop, is that you create this, there's a stage where you have to have this middle management and you can afford it. And you create, you can have that shop foreman or that guy that has all the knowledge that can train all your techs, or,
yeah.
that can solve the big problems. Maybe he's not billing 50 hours a week. He's only doing 25, but
Sure.
he's solving the big problems. It makes sense at that stage.
Yeah.
I know Brian really wanted to say something, so you got to go ahead, brother.
I'm just like jumping out of my chair here. The to me, the real difference is the mentality, right? Because I've seen younger team members that just don't have the mentality to grow and to align themselves and really pull their weight. And I've also seen that with older team members. But we've got 63-year-old technicians that are rock stars. And one of the stores that we just acquired, the store manager is 62 years old, and he's just, it's like he's a spring chicken, really. I mean, he's just so excited about the change and the opportunities, and he still wants to work in the industry another 10 years. He's got a ton of knowledge, but we've had people that, like Phil can probably attest to, they don't want to change, and they're not excited. They're not ambitious, and those people that don't want to grow, that's probably the key there. Those guys are going to be tough to move with you. So for me, the team is key when you're talking about acquisitions and identifying whether the team is there and you want to hold everything in place and build upon that, or like Phil was saying, in one of his shops, he had to scrap the whole team structure and rebuild from scratch, and we've had to do that as well. And your ability to do that really determines whether you overpay for a shop or not. And we have overpaid for shops as is, but then when you get them turned around, you look at it and you say, man, that was a steal, because look what it's doing for us right now. And that's where your talent and your ability and your preparation as an owner really pays off, is when you have those opportunities, you can take advantage of them, and other people are looking at those shops like, hey, those are overpriced, and you look at them and say, this has a ton of potential, and we can turn this into something real special. Because all the basic ingredients are there for us to really make it, light on fire.
I think one of the motivational things, we started this new program that's a 6-month jumpstart program, we call it. We're actually doing this at no charge with a shop we'll be putting on YouTube, filming it all. But we met with the guy 3 weeks ago to get started, and the fact that they're making changes, just the things that we asked him to do, just some minor things, has really motivated the staff. And I think you go into some of these businesses and you have staff, nothing's changed, and they've kind of given up hope. They want to work in a place that's progressive. They want, no matter what their age, I want to make progress. I want to make money. I want to earn a good living. I want to be treated fairly. But the business has run so mediocre for so long that they've just kind of given up hope. And when you come in and you start cleaning up and you start saying, okay, we're going paperless, we're doing this, they get excited. And that's kind of, I think, what you're looking for, is people that can get excited about, here's a new thing, and here's a new business where there's lots of opportunity for you if you can assimilate into the culture and pull your weight.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong about. I'm not wrong about it. I'm right
You're
about
not
that.
wrong.
Yeah. So thanks, Phil. Appreciate that.
One
Um,
question I have real quick, guys, this is David chiming in. What's a deal breaker? What would you, when you're taking a look at a shop and you're thinking about acquisition, if there is, what are the things that just a red flag, stay away?
No lease.
No.
No lease.
Yeah.
And crappy neighborhood. I've only now, by the way, most shops will make an excuse of, you don't understand, Cecil, where I'm at, the customers won't pay this, or customers won't this, or won't that. And most of that's BS. But in my lifetime, I've run across 3 shops that were just in an area that just wasn't feasible. One guy had this beautiful business in this one little mile square, but all around it were terrible neighborhoods, and the good customers would not drive through the terrible neighborhoods to get to him. And so for me, those are 2 of the things that I just wouldn't buy if I couldn't get a strong lease or buy the property, or if it really was the wrong place, And I think you have to do your research on that. Phil, do you have something that's like your no go?
The same exact things. I mean, the other obviously overpriced, like way overpriced, where you're paying so much for it that the capacity of that shop could never outrun that overhead. But yeah, definitely got to make sure you're in a good spot and that you got it for a long time. Because I mean, like our downtown shop, our second location, that is like prime real estate, 3 bays. I would love to make it 7 bays or 10, and I'd still keep it busy because of how many people are around there, but I can't. It is what it is, but we've locked in a very long lease, and it's going to rock out for a long time. But if I had to move that location, it's done. There's nowhere to go. You're starting over at that point. So
yeah, and if you're going more than 5 to 7 miles, you're starting over virtually.
Yeah.
Unless your customers are coming from a specific area to you, and you go into that area.
Yeah.
And there might be a question too, is how about minimum size of the operation as far as amount of bays?
I would say 3. Obviously we have a 3 bay that does 1.3 million, but that's because it is in a very densely populated area. It's a mile from downtown Denver. There's not many shops around it, so the barrier to entry is massive. I mean, just if you watch like Google My Business, how many people are searching that location versus our others, it's 3 times as many people as our other location. So that's kind of my minimum, but I'm sure you guys have.
There are probably exceptions to any rule. When you look at an area like Denver where there's no shops around and there's only this 3 bay shop, and it's really pretty clean, and I can make a good living out of there. I can make this a profitable part of my operation. You're going to make that choice. But I would say for me, it would be 6. Are there 6 bays, 6 to 8?
That's where I'm at. I'm at the 6 bay, shop is kind of what I'm looking for.
Ideally, I'd like to have a 10 bay shop so I could put 5 guys in it. Each could have 2 bays and it would all work great. But, sometimes 6 bays is 6 bays, and that's what you get.
I'm thinking they're few and far between compared to, 3, 4, 5 bay shops. There's a lot more of those available.
Yeah. And that's where, like, tying that together with what Brian Bates said is like, yeah, we would love to pop out a bunch of 6, 7 bay shops everywhere, but we had to keep our mind open. What is out there and what's available? That ideal cookie cutter shop is probably not out there. We got our latest one is as close as we could get to it. It was 5 bays, but yeah, you definitely got to look at the headache of it, and how easy is it going to get to that capacity? Is that the headache of having another location after paying taxes and everything's done? Is this going to make me enough money to warrant all of the effort? And if it's too small, maybe it won't.
Some of our most profitable shops that we've worked with over the years are 3 and 4 bay shops because they just maximize every square inch. And, you got 3 techs in a 3 bay shop doing $1.4 million. Well, that's not bad. Plus your overhead's not, maybe as much because it's a smaller operation. But if you're doing 1.4 and you're netting 20 out of that, I'll take that all day long,
if you have multiple shops and you've got 3 or 4 big shops and you're doing 1.5 consistently out of 3 shops, that's pretty darn good.
Brian, do you have a number that you're looking at? Like I need to do $1 million out of this place, or $1.2 million, or whatever, because you have some pretty big shops.
Yeah, when we look at it, we do look at 6 bays as really kind of the minimum that we want to get into. Although we are open to just about anything, but our model really is 6 bays, 4 technicians, 2 service advisors, a manager, and that seems to support it to where we can hit 15% minimum. And then when you look at the bay capacity on something that's 6 bays, that's got the potential to do $2 million a year. So then you're looking at 300,000 a year. And really, what we look for is we're wanting to get somewhere in the 15 million in sales at about 15 to 20% net, in order to really start looking at what we can sell it in the 6 plus EBITDA numbers. And so when we're looking at stores, to me, how much does this contribute to the potential of the company? And then Phil was talking about the headaches. So logistically, geographically, what does that look like? What does the culture look like presently? How much how much effort are we going to have to transition this and incorporate this into our culture and our company? And so a lot of that really plays into it. And so if you had a 6 bay that was a nightmare versus a 3 bay that was just running like a Swiss time clock, I'd take the 3 bay. If you had a 10 bay that was running like a Swiss time clock and really profitable, and the guy was shopping the shop around, you might be competing with 20 other people that are wanting to buy that shop. So there's a few dynamics in there that kind of you put the old Benjamin Franklin line down the middle of your notebook and say, okay, what are the pros and cons to having one model over the other? And there's always challenges with anything, but the key is to overcome those challenges with the talent and the team that you build, and get to the other side, which is the reward for the hard work, effort, and the risks that you take.
Okay, thank you, Brian. If you have questions out there, we're getting towards the end. So if you are watching this and you have some questions, I am watching the chat, and I'd love to ask the questions of the panelists. While we're waiting for that question, I'm going to ask Phil and Brian. BJ, not yet with multiple shops, but is there a number that makes it easier? Is 2 difficult but 3's easy, or is 3 difficult but 4's better because now you can pay for the overhead of the extra management? Is there a place that where it gets easier?
No.
Brian's smiling, so I'm pretty sure. I think when you have 2, you're trying to have that middle management. Maybe you're working a little harder. I don't know. You guys certainly would be able to tell. I had 3, and it still seemed really difficult to be, to get it all done. Although I wasn't as experienced as I am today when I had the 3. Go ahead.
No, I always like asking this question as well. So looking back, guys, I guess more so for Phil and for Brian, as BJ's at that point of trying to expand. When you guys look back, and if you could tell yourself 1 or 2 things at the beginning of when you were growing, like what are some of those things that Phil and Brian, when you guys were first growing, you wish you would have known that you know now?
For me, it's developing that story and the purpose that ends up being a higher purpose that ends up feeding the result of profiting. So the why are you really doing this? And it has to be more than to make money. It has to be that you're doing something to make the world a better place, to add value to everybody's lives. and looking at this industry as a fantastic opportunity to accomplish those things, because people really depend on transportation and the team members that have poured all their life effort into developing their skills as a manager or service advisor or technician, and those that are getting into the industry, it means a lot to them as well. And to identify that and really recognize that, people are drawn to that, and it does make your life a lot easier. And so, Cecil, to your question of when does it become easy at 1, 2, 3, or 4? I've seen guys that have 8 shops that are just pulling their hair out, and guys that have 20 shops that are just having a great time doing it. And it really, to me, involves getting people like Phil on board that really are bought into where you're taking the company, and that makes it really easy at 1 shop or at 10 shops. And if you don't have people behind you and that you have that purpose for them to be with you and where you're going with the company, then it's going to be difficult at any level. So kind of answer both of your guys' question there at once. I'd like to just answer one question from a guy that asked Fitzpatrick. I think it's interesting about the marketing. His question was, when do you change the branding and the names? Phil and Brian go in right away and change all the branding. And we were thinking of that same strategy as we bought our last 2 shops. And what we found was those shops have identity and have history and legacy. Both of them been open for over 30 years. And we really don't see a benefit to changing if everything's working well. Now, if the company was struggling and it had bad reputation, then I think it's highly beneficial. But there's a lot of things that go into that. And I think one of the things is what's your end game, and who's your buyer going to be in 5, 10, 20 years? Are you going to sell to somebody that's very interested in buying a brand? Or are you going to sell to somebody that's going to want to bring your brand or your company productivity into their brand, in which case they're really not going to be concerned about that. So there's a lot that goes into that, and we've kind of done both. We've changed brands and we've kept them the same. And to me, if they're happy and people are getting what they want out of it and they're profitable, then I'm happy with keeping the same brand.
Awesome.
Okay. And I've done, like when we purchased RLO training, which we did, I don't know, it's 6 months ago now, we're going to keep RLO. It's got a great reputation. The people know it. The group members love it. Why would you change that? So,
Right. Well,
but
and I'm going to tell you what that came up at the meeting last week,
Yeah.
and it means something to me, right? Because although I have a lot of respect for the Institute for Business Excellence, there's an identity in RLO, and everybody at that meeting was really in agreement that, hey, look, we want to be a part of a bigger movement, but we also have an identity and a legacy that we'd like to honor as well with Bob O'Connor and the history that's there and the teams that we formed. So there's so much emotion and so much dynamic, and the marketing is more of a pain in the butt, but the benefits are huge when it comes to that psychological impact that people bring with them.
I can think of like 25 more questions to ask just kind of around that, but I'm not going to go there. Parker Davis asked, when do you go to like centralized accounting? Do you do that right away? When you have your second shop, you have one accounting system, for both shops, or are you accounting for them separately?
Go ahead, Phil.
We're a little bit unique because Avalon is its own LLC, and then Urban Auto Care, those 4 locations are its own LLC. But we've had the same bookkeeper since the beginning. It's a 1099 contractor. But as far as like on our side, it's to me, I think you need the sooner the better, to make sure what is my end game? What reports do I need? How do I want to break this down? For example, our 4 stores, it's all through QuickBooks, but it's Urban Auto Care all together, and then we have 4 separate classes, actually 5 classes. We have 4 classes for each store, and then the 5th class is a corporate for any corporate expenses. That way you can see how each store is performing individually, but then also all together on the P&L. So that's pretty important, thinking about that from the beginning before you start branching out. And to me, I think the better you have your processes at each store, the better your information is, the less your bookkeeper is going to have to spend going through all of that. I'm surprised that, I mean, initially we were having her do maybe 10 hours a month with one store. Now she's maybe doing 30 hours a month with 5 stores. So it really hasn't gone up all that much. And it's not enough to justify having somebody full-time for that. So
I think when you have a good shop operating system like Shop-Ware, it certainly makes it easier. I'm going to make the comment and then we'll kind of wrap this up. You have to look at each, just like you look at parts and labor separately so you can tell the margins, you have to look at each store separately. So you need the financials to be able to be broken out for each location, because in one location you might be battling parts margin, and another one you might be battling average repair order, you know, or some other margin or one of the other important KPIs. And you want to know what that is so that you can, you know, fight that battle and spend your limited time and energy in the right places. So that I think that's important, but I think I would bring it all under the same roof in the way through my one accountant. I'm not getting multiple accountants or multiple systems. I want a piece of software that will allow me to do that and make it easier. The more automatic you make it, the better it's going to be. All right, so we're kind of at the end. We're maybe even past the end by a couple of minutes. I'm gonna literally. It's obvious that we need to talk about this more. So I'd love to get another one scheduled with Zack and David at some point in the future, and maybe bring you guys back and have more conversation about this. But I'm going to go ahead, Zack, and let you wrap it up for us, bud.
Yeah, no, thank you. More importantly, you know, thank you, BJ, thank you, Brian, thank you, Phil, and thank you, Cecil, and obviously thank you, David, for hosting us and giving us this platform. And hopefully the panel, excuse me, the attendees learned a couple things today. But as you can tell, there's a lot more questions, a lot more knowledge to be learned from these gentlemen as they're learning and going through their journey. So yeah, we look forward to having some more of these. But more importantly, thank you for everybody for giving us the opportunity, David, and then thank you for the attendees for taking part of your day to spend some time with us, and hopefully you learned a couple things. So David, back to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it. Great content. We can definitely circle back on having a second version of this. So Phil, Zack, BJ, Brian, Cecil, thanks for joining us today. Good to see everyone. We'll have this up on YouTube by the end of the week, and everyone else have a good rest of the day.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Yep. Have a good day.
Thanks, guys.